So I want to introduce all of you to Rebekah Moore.
Hello.
And Rebekah, we have pizza. So everyone help yourself to pizza because
Always
we
a
have
good
lots of it. Rebekah is the program director for the Arts Council of Greater New Haven. And what is super unique about her is she is a graduate of Southern. And she's going to share that whole experience with us about coming from college, being where she is now. But what's really unique is that she is the co-owner of #TheTeam podcast. And it seems like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like podcasting is how, like, your lens to creativity and how you see the world. And she's giving back to the New Haven community and helping students in the public schools learn to podcast. So we're going to learn a little bit more about that, but welcome and thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your path from college to career.
For sure. So I graduated from Hill House High School, which is right up the street. At that time, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. It just made sense. They had a teacher program where you got a full ride to come to Southern to be a teacher. So I'm like, this is awesome. I've worked with kids, throughout my life in church and different things. So I got that scholarship. I came to Southern. At the time, I wanted to be a high school math teacher. After Calculus 2 with only a midterm and final and failing the midterm, I'm like, yeah, let's switch this direction.
That's far to get to calculus.
Yeah. I'm a math
girl,
but I was like, yeah, let me switch this up. So I did elementary ed, and with elementary ed, you have to have a second degree. And I was elementary in psychology. Love psychology so much, I ended up graduating with my psychology degree. I would say in high school, it was like, you just have to go to college. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. The first person in my family to graduate from a 4-year college. During the time that I was a student here at Southern, I actually got hired at Yale New Haven Hospital for like custodial. And I'm like, oh, I'm making good money. So I thought then, right? Working there and working at Southern's athletic center as an equipment manager, because I did that through high school and then I ended up working there. So I was working 2 jobs here at Southern. So I graduated. I'm like, okay, cool. I got my degree. Stayed at Yale for 13 years because it was safe. It was comfortable. It was guaranteed money, guaranteed insurance. But I knew it was just a job, not necessarily something that a career that I wanted to do. And I was in a number of departments, from custodial, secretary in emergency department, secretary in psych emergency, registration, medical records. The emergency room actually wanted me back, so I told them this is my price, and they agreed. But it was just, I was never fulfilled. After about 2 years, I'm like, okay, what's next? Because I was reaching that ceiling everywhere I was going. I was training the people coming in. I was making the employee handbooks, and I'm like, I need more. So while working at Yale, me and a group of friends were like, listen, we are funny. We need a TV show. So a friend of mine was like, I was looking into a podcast. We should do it. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let's do it. YOLO. So we did the podcast for about 2.5 years. Absolutely loved it. And as being podcasters, we met a woman by the name of Adrienne Jefferson, who is the executive director of cultural affairs for the city of New Haven, at like this like woman empowerment brunch. And I'm like, oh, I need to know this lady. Like, she's great. Met her, and she reached out and was like, we would love you guys to speak at CT Arts Day, which was the event that was in collaboration with the city and New Haven Arts Council. And we're like, oh, well, unfortunately, we're not artists. We podcast. So they go, well, you express yourself, right? I'm like, well, yeah, sure. Every 2 weeks. And so they're like, that is art. So they really opened my mind as to what art is. Growing up was always dance, theater, music, and visual arts. I would never in a million years think that podcasting was an art form, or culinary, as we were talking, like creating dishes and food. That is an art form. So we're like, okay, cool. They're going to pay us to come. We get there. It was amazing. And that's how I met Daniel Fitzmaurice, who was the executive director of the Arts Council. So I really got tapped into what Arts Council was. Never heard of it a day in my life. It's been around since 1964. And I'm born and raised in New Haven and never knew. So I'm like, what is this place? So we signed up, became a member. And at the time, they had a REACH grant, which was in collaboration with the Community Foundation of Greater New Haven, $45,000 to be able to do a project. So our project was teaching youth how to podcast. We taught them the visual aspect of it, the audio, how to record, how to do interviews, how to not speak over each other. So we're like, all right, we're gonna go for it. Got that grant. So for 2 years, we were able to teach high school students about the art of podcasting. And what's really great about working with kids is they already have the skills going live on Instagram and, TikTok. I was just saying, TikTok is literally video editing. So they have the skill set. So letting them know that you already have the skill, this is how you can create a career or a living with it. So loved doing that. And while we were doing that program, Arts Council has a job for a program director. And so Adrienne, who is my mentor, she's like, Beck, you should go for this. I'm like, what? Like, what's a program director? Like, I never knew about nonprofits, anything about the nonprofit sector. I'm like, I don't know. She was like, you're doing the thing already. So one tip is when other people see things in you, take it for face value and not, be negative about it. Like, oh no, that's not me. I literally was doing programming with this program, along with other things that I've done outside. Like I've done event planning. I'm my own event planning business. Haven't done it since I had my son. He's 3 because that's a
That's
lot.
its
But
own event.
exactly. So she's seen that I already had the skills for that job. So I'm like, okay, let's just see what happens. I end up getting it. And here I am 2 years later as a program director for the Arts Council. So it's a great shift from an artist that's being supported by an organization and now working for the organization. All of our staff, majority are artists. And I think that's really important because you can see the need as an artist and as an administrative person working in that organization. So that's my journey. That's how I got here. It literally fell in my lap. I was in a conference and they said, look at your life and your trajectory and see that your career kind of comes to you. You don't really pick it, it picks you. And that's very telling for my story and how I ended up being the program director now at the Arts Council.
That's a great story. And I think it's very true because we spend so much time, especially in this space as students, trying to figure out what are we going to be, what are we going to do. And it's really 4 years, 2 years is not enough time. And you don't have to know. I mean, it's impossible to know. And it's okay to keep searching and finding fulfillment,
For
like you
sure.
said. And I do think that at some point, everything we do has a purpose and it sort of leads us to that space. And without even knowing, like you said, you find your way and like, all right, this is where I'm supposed to
Yeah.
be, and this is why all those things happened, and now I'm here. Um, and part of that is having the confidence, I think, to explore. And so you found that confidence in that space. And so, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Um,
The first thing is being honest with yourself, right? Um, really sitting down and saying, what is it that I enjoy? I think understanding who you are and what you enjoy will then lead you to what it is that you will become. I think a lot of times when you're even in high school, even in middle school, we're like, what do you want to be when you get older? I brought my son a little sign for like preschool, and it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, I don't know yet. And I'm like, actually, right, because we're asking a 3-year-old, what do they want to do? Um, and being able to be flexible with change. I was very, very, very scared to leave Yale. Because it was guaranteed money. I never knew it. Like I said, I didn't know much about nonprofit, and nonprofit is very much based on donations and funding. So I was like, I'm actually uncertain about this. But I knew that in order to be fulfilled, I needed to take that leap. So confidence is knowing that you're always going to be okay. If you have to lift to get money, there's so many opportunities now in 2024. You will always be okay. And if you take that leap and it fails, it's okay.
and
It's a
and
part
on
of your
you,
journey.
right? It's
Right.
on you because I think a lot, like I feel like, and maybe this resonates, I'm not sure, but I know for me, I grew up in a household where it was like, oh, your cousin works at the Aetna.
Right.
Nobody knew what the heck she did at Aetna, right? I mean, she could have been
Just the
doing
words.
anything, but it's like, oh, she works there. So everyone was always trying to build up to like, the right job. So
Right.
at Yale, you were working for Yale, right? And you had all of these different positions, and it was a steady income and good
Right.
benefits. And it's like, why would you give that up?
For sure.
So trusting your gut is hard
Absolutely.
sometimes, right? Yeah.
And then understanding the confidence, even in the custodial role, I was a leader. Even in my secretary role in the emergency department, I was a leader. So knowing like, wow, I am a leader. So it wasn't until I got into my role, like, wow, I actually was being a leader throughout all of those jobs. I just didn't know it. I didn't see it in myself. So I always thank my mentor, Adrian, for actually seeing that in me. Because when you do the things, you're just, I'm doing the things because that's what it is. I'm always the one that's throwing the parties, and I'm always the advocate when the manager is like not doing their thing with the employees. I was always the one that spoke up. Even as the middle child, like I'll speak up for my older sister or my little brother. My dad used to always be like, "You need to be a lawyer." um, but even in this role, I'm able to do advocacy, right? I've been in Washington, D.C. with Americans for the Arts and gone to our state legislators saying we need money for the artists and funding. I actually have to do some advocacy this Friday up at the state capitol for the governor's budget. Um, and that's a part of my job as well, speaking up and being vocal. So I think I have to be confident, especially when I do these type of advocacy pieces. I would say always know who you are and don't compromise it for any job or any check or money. Um, I'm an open book. I'm loud. I'm vibrant. Um, and that's just who I am. And there's been roles I'm like, listen, this is what you're going to get. Like, is that good or no? Absolutely, it's okay. And I used to be like, oh, I'm always the loud one in the group. Let me undermine myself. Like in class is always, oh, I'm always the one with my hand raised. Um, be confident in who you are and continue to be that person because it'll lead you to where you're supposed to be in the future.
It's interesting that you talk about advocacy because it seems for decades the arts have always suffered, right? Like the government just doesn't put money into the arts.
Yeah.
And arts are like at its most fundamental level, true expression of who we are. And so it's kind of like doesn't make any sense. And I see lately, maybe since COVID and a lot of the social justice movements that we've seen since the murder of George Floyd, we see that there is more value and emphasis being put on how people express themselves.
Absolutely.
And so, how does that look to you? Are we going in the right direction, and what can we do to really get that message out there
sure.
that it's a career, right? Even the graffiti art that you see, that's someone's expression. It's
Absolutely.
beautiful, can be interpreted. And so how do we, empower people to
I think
do what they
COVID
want?
really made a switch in what art was or is. It used to always be a side hustle or a hobby, and you would never think like I can be a full-time artist because our parents said, oh no, that's not a good enough job. You're not going to be able to survive with that. And I think that is starting to change. I always say like the arts is what really kept us sane during COVID. Those versus concerts online or doing a paint night with your family inside, like that really helped us to stay some type of alive. And even going to DC, it's like, oh yeah, we all love art. The legislators like, oh, we just don't want to pay for it. So a part of our advocacy, we did the AEP6 study. So it's a study every 5 years where we get data from nonprofits on what their budgets are, and then we go to guess like, oh, how much did you pay for your ticket? How much did you pay for parking? Nobody's ever going to go to the theater and just go and go home. They're going to go out to dinner. They're going to spend money on drinks. They're going to pay the city to park. So this year, for every $1 spent in the arts, there's another 9 that is generated. It's a $1 billion industry right here in Connecticut alone. So why is that money not generating back to the artists and the art that everybody loves? There's people that we're on the top 52 list is top 52 cities to visit in the world. New Haven is on it. Why? Because it's arts and culture sector.
That's a genius way to look at it, like all of the dollars that are coming back into the state and the municipalities. And
the advocacy that I'm doing Friday, the governor's budget for 2025, they added like $1 million for arts and culture, but it's only for tourism marketing. It's not going to the theaters. It's not the reason why the tourists are coming. Is the money's not going there. So that's what we're advocating for this Friday. Um, because yeah, it makes money. The numbers are there because everybody wants to know about data. At the end of the day, everything is always about money. So here's the numbers. So what are we going to do about it? So
It is too, I think, and no matter what career choices you're exploring, it's kind of who you know. It's not
absolutely.
always what you know. And so
Absolutely.
how do our students begin to cultivate that network? What does
Yeah.
that look like?
So definitely go on our website, newhavenarts.org. We have a directory named Culturalists. So a lot of times we'll get emails like, hey, I'm looking for a photographer. Do you know anybody? So for us to be equitable, we actually refer them to that directory. Because I could easily give them 3 names of people that I know, but we want to be equitable. So we go right to that directory. On that directory, there's a number of artists with a number of different mediums. Even if you're not an artist and you want to sign up, you can. There's a section on there for you to do so. And then there's different opportunities on there as well. Not only our grants, but grants for the city, statewide grants. This platform has culturalist pages for different cities. So say you go to New Orleans and like, I want to connect with an artist there. You can go on New Orleans webpage and see different artists on there. And I would say going to our calendar, just going to different events and just being visible. Networking is key. And then email me. I know a lot of people. Like we're the middle person between the artists and organizations most times. So Adrienne Jefferson also, as I mentioned, she has done wonders since she's been in New Haven and in the city. We work with them very, very close because you'll notice in the arts, a lot of the grants are for nonprofits or for organizations. So we try to cultivate, so we have fiscal sponsorship. So you can take our 501c3 status and apply for those grants. And then our grants is a Google form with your name, what's the project. We try to keep it as simple as possible because we know that an artist can't pay somebody to write a grant for them that's 42 pages long. So we, with our practices, are then taking our practices and giving them to different organizations like, hey, you guys should do these things. So yeah, a number of organizations that I know personally, we can always connect. We have an event actually called Fridays at the Sandbox, which is a summer series. So every Friday, artists will be highlighted, get paid for being highlighted. We'll have a culinary artist get paid for providing the food, and it's networking events for artists of all ages and kinds. So
That's super cool.
yeah, but if you go to our calendar, there's tons of events where you can connect and reach out. But Adrienne Jefferson from Arts and Culture in the City of New Haven, myself, as I said, we can definitely connect you. And we serve the greater New Haven too. So it's not even just New Haven, West Haven, Hampden, Meriden, Wallingford, Milford, East Haven. There's a few others, like 15 different towns or cities that we serve. But I would say just be you. Be you. Have your business card. People don't do that anymore. They have the tap thing now, right? Yeah, that's really cool. And if you know your elevator pitch, that's pretty great. It's key. So if somebody says, "Oh, what's the podcast?" "Oh, we're the group chat and podcast forum. We're here to entertain, inform, and inspire." I know it like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
Which is really important because when people see that confidence and see the passion that you talk about your own work, they're more interested in knowing about it.
Do you work on that for your platform, Elevator Pitches? Yeah. So Patty, is our springboard internship coordinator and all things wonderful to connect you to folks in your career. So if you don't have an elevator pitch yet, it's really cool to have one because it's important when someone asks you a question that you are prepared. Yeah.
Another mentor of mine said, if somebody said, I have $100,000 for you, explain what you do.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. And succinctly.
For sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I put in my notes, understand your why you do things. Me being in this role is bigger than just Rebekah, program director. I'm servicing artists that look like me. I'm servicing young adults that are going to be the generation above ahead of me. How do I help them to be one step closer to where they need to be? Nobody taught me how to be a program director. I kind of learned that on my own and through mentors. It's really great to have a mentor that you trust, that can give you the things that you're doing wrong and the things that you're doing right. You never want a yes man in your corner. Um, but understanding your why and your passion for why you do the things you do is just going to elevate when you are speaking to people and meeting people. And it's going to go a long way.
And I think too, like some of these opportunities you have where the artists get together, the
Yeah.
sandbox, I think you called it. It's no matter what your major is, these are great events to attend because if it's something that
Absolutely.
interests you, anything in the arts that interests you, maybe that's a little spark in you that's going to shine when you're in that room and you're going to engage with someone and
Yeah.
you have to make those connections. So don't always feel like, all right, I'm a management major and I have to go to some stuffy business chamber event, right? Go where your heart is and follow your passion. And this is where those opportunities really happen.
Yeah,
And
I
they
always
may know
tell.
someone who knows
Yeah, oh,
someone, right?
absolutely. And I always tell people you don't have to be the artist. You don't have to be the actor or the dancer. There are so many jobs within the arts that are background. Um, it's just wild. We get them all the time to add to our culturalist event opportunities page. So just letting people know you don't have to actually be the artist. You can still be a lover of art and still work within, the field that you enjoy.
So, like, who were your role models growing up, and has that shifted? Who's your role model
Ooh.
today?
I would definitely say my mom. That's one hardworking lady. Now she works at the hospital and has worked there for 35 years.
Okay, see, that's where you get it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been working since I was 14. And actually, they don't even have too many, but Cold Stone in North Haven, I
Yeah.
wasn't even supposed to be working. I was 15. I was supposed to be 16, but they let me slide. So that work ethic and by all means spirit, I definitely got from my mom. I still get from her. Um, as I said, Adrian is just her poise because I'm a very vocal person and I'm a passionate person, I will say. When things that just doesn't make sense to me. Um, when I'm advocating and do things. But Adrian is just a person that has taught me um how to go about that passion and redirecting it in a great way. Um, and she's almost around the same age as me. So there can be people that are the same age as you that still know more than you. I never want to be the smartest person in the room. I always want to learn, and having the spirit of being able to learn and take constructive criticism is key. So my mom and Adrian are my two biggest people that I'm like, yeah. Jay-Z too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They doubted him and like see where he is
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And
You don't have to say who you are, you can show them.
yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes that goes a long way.
Oh,
A lot
absolutely.
more actions speak louder than words, for
Hmm.
sure. So, um, when we sort of think about, our career and our next moves, there's always this part, at least for a lot of people, this sense of wanting to give back, paying it forward. And when did you recognize that that was some of your passion,
Yeah.
and how have you prioritized that?
Yeah. And it's so funny. So when I talked about how this came into my lap, my dad was always at like shelters and volunteering, and we've always had somebody in our house that we've helped or they've mentored marriage counseling between him and my mom. So that spirit of serving others has just been instilled in me from childhood. um, my dad always said, when you leave here, what is your name going to represent? um, who are people going to remember you as? So that was when I was very young, that spirit. And it was nonprofit work.
Yeah.
We just thought it was,
I love that
community
because
service.
there's this like, when you go on your computer, you're turning on, all this stuff pops up,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And for some reason, this thing always pops up, and it says people will never remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you
Sure
made them
will.
feel. And so
Absolutely.
that's
And it's
probably,
so real.
yeah.
Yeah. So that has always been in my life, like even when I was younger. Um, and I would say that, what was the second part of the question? I want to make
Get
sure I
like
get it right.
prioritizing giving back.
Yes. So in this role, you can give to the point where you have nothing left. And when I first got into this role, I'm like, it's bigger than me. I have to do this thing. I have to be up till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night doing these things. And I had to sit back and realize you can't pour from an empty cup. I know people say that all the time, but it's a real thing. And burnout is real. So what are the tools and the things that I can do to make sure that I am serving others, but I'm also showing up for myself as well? So right now, I started at the top of the year where I only have 6 hours of meeting time, because in this role, people just want to meet with you a lot. So after that 6 hours has capped, you're gonna have to meet with me the following week. Um, and being really consistent with my space and my time. Thank God, I love my executive director, Hope Chavez. She implemented unlimited PTO, paid time off. So she's really adamant on mental health days and reset days. So our organization every other month takes off, the whole office takes off to be able to check emails, clear out your emails, clean your desk because you've been running. And those type of things go a long way when you are doing advocacy and working and serving others. So make sure you always show up for yourself as well, because I can say that I lost that for a little while. And it's okay to take time off. I remember one time I seen a poster and I was like, I told my mom I took a mental health day and she thought I had 3 heads because like, what is that, right? They're just so used to working, working, working. So I've inherited that from my mom, the work ethic, but I've also inherited my newfound mental health and self-care rituals. And you can do both. It's okay to do both.
It's so important because we
Mhm.
always, especially as women,
Oh, yeah.
tend to put ourselves second and everybody else first.
Absolutely.
And we were just having this discussion yesterday in the leadership seminar about, is that something that women sort of, it's an issue with us that's more prevalent
Internal.
because we are nurturing, because we are moms, that that we
Yeah.
just can't get out of it,
And I
right?
think in all areas and roles, you always have to fight a little bit harder as a woman, um, especially a woman of color in a genre or place where it's really white dominated male organizing nonprofits, or if you look at boards, they're older white men. Um, and I think it's an internal thing too, right? Like they probably are not thinking that at all, but as a woman, it's like, oh, I have to go extra harder. I have to do a little bit more. Um, so yeah, finding that balance of going the extra mile and being okay with, I don't have to do extra because I already bring more than enough to whatever it is that I'm doing.
And so, in your role, do you see yourself as someone who's breaking barriers then?
For sure. There's very few. So I actually am a part of being in this role. I'm a part of the nonprofit leaders of color program. It's a 2-year program that Community Foundation actually pays you to. They pay your organization $20,000 each year, so it's 40,000 total for you to be able to be a part of this program and get a certificate in public health with UConn. Um, and with having conversations with the folks that I am with, there is a very small group of us, and we have to show up in a different way. But nonetheless, we still show up because we know it's much bigger than us. There's a group of 8 of us right now in the cohort. We're the 3rd cohort of this. And kudos to Community Foundation because they want people of color to be the CEO of Community Foundation. As these older generation of executive directors starts to leave, who are our successors? So that was the nature and reason for them doing that program. And I'm so grateful for them to do that because now you'll start seeing younger executive directors, more people that have like the bigger picture and not stuck in their ways. Because after a certain age, you kind of get stuck in, what used to be. What does a board look like with youth on it? So just changing those things for the future and the future to come.
And how has technology changed your
Oh,
space?
so we're hybrid majority of the week,
Yeah.
which I absolutely love. Um, Technology is a driving force. So even like Canva, we were just talking
Yeah.
about it. Before you can pay, you have to pay somebody to do a flyer for you. Now it's just a click of a button and you can get the things done. But we still stay true to our graphic artists. We don't want them to feel like they're not needed because Canva is here or things like that. But technology has made it easier to reach more people within this role too.
That's true.
Because other than tabling back in the day, you didn't have email blasts and social media. We have a lot of social media followers. Um, so it's a lot because you have social media, emails, tabling, you have all the things, but it's definitely worth it. Technology, if you can learn, there's a lot of like certificates. I've seen like Harvard University has like free technology certificates and things like that. Learn those things, even if it's not, if you're going to school for management, it's great to have those extra things because you never know where you can be needed in an organization, or if the organization is making cuts, it's like, okay, well, I can go to this department instead because I have this skill. Never feel like you have to be boxed into one thing.
And talking about skills, what about interpersonal skills? And do you have an opportunity to engage with like new employees or new artists, right, who are coming in? So do you see sort of a shift in interpersonal skills? Because we hear that a lot from folks who are conducting interviews that, you know, they don't always have someone who has a firm handshake or who maintains eye contact.
Right.
Or
And I think even after COVID, it's been even worse.
yeah.
Like we were so isolated. I just, before coming here, I was at Common Ground for their career fair. And even the students, like majority of them were at home like all that time. So even like reeling them in to come to the table, like, hey girl, I see you over there, come on over. Because everybody isn't an extrovert. I am. I'm sure you can tell. But what can you do as an introvert also to still make an impact and, connect with people? I think our world is going to take some time to actually get back to the coming together and being able to just talk to somebody in the line at the grocery store, things like that. So if you do have that, especially now, like you're ahead of the game because there's so many people that, you know, like I think about the high school students that graduated, like my niece graduated virtually. Um, and then you go to college, it's like, oh, okay, everything's back to normal. Like, hey, you're living in a dorm, you're living by yourself. That alone is scary. But then imagine right after COVID, like what are some skills that you can use to be able to, and I think, like I said, if you really know your passion and your elevator pitch, it leads you to a more comfortable conversation when speaking to people.
Yeah, I think it's hard for any of us
Oh, absolutely.
to work our way out of that.
And even as a podcaster, like we've had people, it's like, oh, what do you do? Oh, I do this. And it's that awkward silence. So, like learning how to reel it in or finding that one thing that you could connect to that person and you see them light up. And then that helps ease the conversation. But yeah,
So
it's a skill.
why podcasting?
Listen, shout out to Danny, my friend Danny. She's the one that actually, because we're just a ball of fun. Me and my friends, we've been friends for over 20 years, which is very rare that you see nowadays. And she's like, we need a TV show. I'm like, well, I don't know about TV, but she was like, I did the research on podcasts, and so the podcast actually originated from Danielle, my friend Danielle. She was executive director. I was the program director. Another friend, Joanne, she was the finance girl, and then our friend Latrell was the marketing person. And we created an LLC for our art, so we're able to do tax exempt on all our equipment. Um, we have our business meetings at PEP Changemakers. We get to write that off. So we teach that to our artists as well on our skill box, which is our YouTube page. We actually have a tax class. If you guys want to go today, it's free from 5:30 to 7:30 on how you can write off different things as an artist and how to properly do your taxes. Because when you get these grants, they're going to give you a 1099. And it's like, how do I fill this out?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
thinking of the business part of the artistry.
So tell us about your podcast. I
Oh, yeah.
Googled it and it
Oh, my
looks like
goodness.
it was
Yeah.
like a lot of fun.
That was in my young time. Don't judge me on some of the episodes. But it literally was the group chat. And it was just so easy flowing when you hear our episodes. It was so easy to talk because we've been friends forever.
Yeah.
And we wanted serious conversations and fun conversations. So we had suicide prevention, where a friend of ours had passed away in 2018, Kayla, and we had a therapist, thank you, come on to talk about suicide prevention. We've had bouts in our friendship, and we had a therapist come on. We have literally had an episode on us like, well, you didn't say this right. And we wanted to let people know that friendship is real, it's needed, it's necessary. There are going to be conflicts, but ultimately, that's family that you get to choose. Um, as I said, we've been friends for over 20 years, and it's just been a blessing. Pod in New Haven, which is our high school podcast, they were able to pick their own episodes, things that they had a problem with. So, like, one of the schools had a new implementation of like their locker procedure or something like that. And they were able to talk about it, bring on the principal, and say, well, why did you come up with this decision? And they really were able to be vocal and express themselves. And as I said, be who you are, and don't apologize for it. And they were able to use that when they went to school. One of those girls are at North Carolina A&T, another is here at Southern Jose. And he actually wants to start a podcast on campus. So stay tuned. I'll have to connect with him. He was like, I have like 3 friends that we're ready to do it. And I'm like, let's do it.
That's awesome.
Let's give you the equipment and do your thing. So it's just a blessing. Even if they don't do podcasting, when we talk about those interpersonal skills, they have those skills. And another young lady, Janae, wrote me and was like, thank you so much for the podcast, because it really helped me with navigating my first year of college. So.
And it's nice too, because it's like you can put all of your energy into something that's positive and that you like to do. And it's not the pressure of your schoolwork.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Right. So I love it.
So
what a journey, right?
Yeah. One of the things we ask typically our guests is like, today, looking back, what would you tell your younger self?
Ride the wave. Ride the wave of change, and be okay with it. Like I said, I tussled for a while, like, oh, I'm nervous. No, this is what I was supposed to do. This is what I'm gonna do. I think if I gave myself more grace to say like this change or this event or thing that's happening in my life is supposed to happen for a reason. Because it, like I said, it ultimately leads you to where you will be. So just ride the wave of life. That's
And
the
so
biggest thing.
what is next for you?
So
what are your dreams?
So as a program director, there was actually opportunity to be executive director. And I'm like, I'm not applying for that. And of course, my mentor is like, girl, do it. So I'm like, okay, we'll see. I ended up being one of the 2 finalists for the job, but I was real with myself, like, Beck, you're not ready yet. Oh, I call myself Beck. You could call me Beck too. I'm like, Beck, you're not ready yet. And I was honest with myself to be like, yeah, I'm actually not going to take this. So when that happened, right after, that's when I got the opportunity to be a part of the program that I'm in now. So right now I'm in a position of learning about budgets and all the things that come with nonprofits. So hopefully one day I'll be an ED somewhere. But I love what I do. I love the nonprofit world. There's so many opportunities, so many different organizations that I've partnered with, been blessed to work with. So we'll see. We'll see if I'm in a leadership role in the next few years.
I think though that's an inspirational story because especially for women, because we always tend to say I'm not qualified for that.
Imposter syndrome is real.
Yes, 100%. But you recognize that really there was just some skill sets like the budgeting and all of that other stuff that we know is really essential in that particular role. But yet you still put yourself out there, like you had the confidence to do that. Which is so important because we know that men will always do that and women will
and they'll think about it later.
do that. So that's a great story.
Yeah. So I definitely know that I am a leader, and wherever that takes me, I'm proud to be a leader and represent more than just myself.
Does anyone have any questions for Rebekah?
Let me know. So, and I will say, I had to kind of figure out some things on my own as well. Although I love work and I got that work ethic from her, there's a lot of generational stuff that I'm like, oh yeah, no, actually, I'm going to take a mental health day. So that's what I talked about. So you can take pieces of the people and then you can make it your own also. I would say my passion really drives me. Um, and that's the thing. If you're going in something that you really don't want to do, but you know it's going to be a good income or whatever, that's going to make you be like, oh, I don't want to wake up for work today. Like there's not there have ever since being a program director for the Arts Council, it has not been a day where I've been like, oh, I gotta go to work because it's something I actually want to do. So being true to yourself with whatever degree that you're going with, are you truly doing it because you want to, or is it because this is what's going to make me the most money or whatever in the long run? And I think I did that first, right? When I was signing up to be a teacher, which teachers don't even make that much money. But in high school, it was like, oh, this is a job that you'll get a pension and all those things. Um,
Live up to expectation.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. I think when you truly are in something that you love and your passion, it's going to be easy for you to wake up in the morning and get to it. Even entrepreneurs, right? When people say, "Oh, I don't want to work for anybody. I'm going to do my own job." Well, guess what? Now you're the HR, you're the marketing person, you're the person that's packing those packages if it's something like that you're selling of a service. It's a lot of work even as an entrepreneur. It's actually more work,
Yeah.
I would say, because when you work for someone, it's like, all right, I'm off. I'll see
There's
you
all
tomorrow.
the legalities of everything,
It's a
you
lot.
don't want to get in trouble on your
Right.
taxes.
But all of my entrepreneur friends, they love what they do. So it's nothing for them to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and say, let me get it ahead of the game. I will also say plan, plan, and plan again. I live by my calendar. Um, I put in space. I make sure because when I first started, I would have a meeting from 9 to 10, then 10 to 11, and 11 to 12. I purposely put in 15-hour blocks in between my meetings now, to make sure that I'm giving myself a breather.
That's smart.
And think, yeah, it's so important. And then plan your day out, your week out. I have, like I said, I live by my calendar. I had to make this graphic where it's like, all right, from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., that's my sleep time. And it's like color coordinated, it's super cute. But I think planning and knowing the passion that it is that you really want to do, even if you have family and friends like you're crazy for going for that, you're gonna get it done because you have a passion for it. That's what's gonna wake you up in the morning, for sure. Did that answer your question? No problem. Yeah.
Google or
Huh?
Google Calendar or Apple
I use Apple Calendar, but I'm a paper and pen girl, so I still go get my cute one. You know, you're in Target for hours because, like, I'm committed to this thing for a whole year. Like, it has to have the tabs, it has to have this. And I bought a budget book too from Amazon that helps me too. I'm all about pen and paper,
Yeah, I am
but
too.
Apple is great too. Because we always have our phones.
I think that you bring up a good point. It's the organization, right?
Oh.
Organizing your life, just as simple as it is in the calendar. I'm a paper person too, so I found this really cool calendar at Staples
Yeah.
with 3 columns because I have
Love it.
2 jobs and then I'm a mom. So it's
Oh,
like,
yes.
right? So it's like, and everything has, you
Trying to
have
go
to
back to
know
the
where you
gym. I'm like,
are.
gym time. This is
Yeah.
travel time. Yeah. If you plan, it just makes things much, much easier.
Especially
You
when
can
you love,
flow into your day.
especially when you love what you're doing and you want to get
Absolutely.
it all in there, and then you don't feel that stress.
Hmm.
What advice would you give to first generations like now? Also a first generation college student, so my parents both have very good work ethic. They've, gone their whole lives owning businesses, working as management, whatever. But coming from me, this is my first time about to graduate, and I kind of am like, what do I do now?
Right. Um, are you graduating with a degree that you have a passion for or that you felt was gonna?
I think so. I think I'm a business management degree,
Oh,
so it's
nice.
kind of broad. I can kind
For
of
sure.
go
In
into
different
what
ways.
focus. Yeah.
Yeah. Give yourself that grace time because I think, especially like your senior year when you're about to graduate, it's like, okay, so what am I going to do now? If your parents aren't kick you out, stay there. I will say that I was grateful that my relationship with my parents was great. I was able to go home and really like say, okay, what am I going to do now? Because you need that time to kind of figure that out before you jump the gun and be a real adult. I always say you're not really an adult when you're 18.
No, not at all.
Yeah, at least
25.
25. I was going to say 25. But sit down and say, where do I see myself in the next year? I usually do 1 year, 5 years, and then 10. I write down what it is I want to buy a home, I want to do this, etc. And then from there, what are the actions that I need to do in order to get those things done? And sit down and have a real conversation with your parents too, because I know a lot of times people get, especially when you're the first to graduate college, it's like, okay, so what are you going to do now? Because they're so elated, like, look, my daughter graduated, and after graduation party's over, it's like, okay, what's next? And have a real conversation with them and say, I need 3 months, 6 months to really figure out what I want to do with this. And I'm sure they love you and care for you greatly, and that won't be a problem. But yeah, give yourself that time before jumping into a career. I would say get that gap time is really important, because then you're not just getting a job that the first opportunity. You're really able to thoroughly say, does this benefit me? And when you're looking for jobs, don't just always look at the money. You got to look at the benefits, the pensions, how their vacation is, what's their vacation fit, what does a mental health day look like for them? Those things go into it more than just the amount of money that you're getting paid too. Was that good?
So just, I'm not sure where we are with time, but just
47,
quickly,
no, like 13.
thank you. In terms of developing like a personal brand, I think you
Mhm.
clearly have developed
Yes.
the Rebekah Moore personal brand, right? And so,
Yeah.
like, did you think about that? And probably now you can hone it because
For sure.
it's there, but
Right.
how do you develop a personal brand?
I think I said it before, being true of who you are and not trying to make your brand fit a target audience. You have to understand who you are and who you're going to target. You're not going to target everyone, because if you try to target everyone, then you're just going to be making versions of yourself to fit audiences. I know who I target, even with the podcast, like we knew who we targeted: women in friendships between the ages of 21 and I think 35. We gotta put it up now because we're turning 35. But we knew that was our target. Um, and so it was easier for us to relate to the target because we were that target audience. Um, as far as Rebekah as the brand, I think it's just who I am as a person, who I have been, and I'm forever evolving, right? You're never going to be the same person that you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and being okay to say, okay, now that target audience has shifted to a different demographic or population of people. But knowing who you are, your mission, and what you stand for, that's going to help with you and your brand. And you are your brand. When I'm going anywhere, that's Rebekah Moore from the Arts Council. My elevator pitch and all the things. I sometimes forget my business cards. I'm gonna get the digital one. But you are representing, like I said, something much bigger than you. So what does that look like? Making sure that I am my best self when I go into these positions and in these roles and in these meetings and going to the Washington D.C. to state representatives.
I think too that's important for us and especially for students to recognize that as they get closer to graduation, especially that employers are going to look at
Mhm.
you and do you sort of have this personal brand, and that's going to be reflected in your social media, and the way you put yourself out there. And so putting yourself
Absolutely.
out there, the first thing you can be is you are Southern professional. That's who
Absolutely.
you are. And so starting with that brand and
Mhm. And then, like, tweaking if you're about to graduate, like tweaking your social medias now. Because, I get it. As a student, we have fun times. But tweaking it to your, like I said, don't compromise who you are. Um, but if you're looking for a certain role or a certain job, they definitely look at your social medias. I'm thankful that in the arts, everybody's artsy and free flowing. Like, we wear jeans and my dunks
Yeah.
to work, but every place is not like that. So,
Are there any other questions before we wrap up?
I actually have a curious question.
Mhm.
I know earlier you actually brought up the question, although I'm kind of curious what you would answer. What would you do with $100,000? $100,000.
So I paid my student loans off during COVID, so I don't have to worry about that. I have about things. Oh, it was such a blessing, and I paid my car off this year. So the only real debt I have is like a few credit cards. So a few thousand to that. I would definitely purchase a home, a 2 or 3 family home, to make that an investment. Um, and then my mom, so she still, when my dad passed away, she took on doing the role of the shelter. I really want to help her start her nonprofit for that because, when you do the passion, it's coming out of your own pocket and you're doing the things, but I would love to help her with her nonprofit for all the great things that she does.
Nice.
And making sure that I invest. Now, my older self would have said, "Oh, I want to go on a trip to all these places," but investing in things that can make me more money, so that 100,000 actually turns into 200 and then 500. Yeah, but 100,000 will go really quick. So we felt that big when we started the podcast. We thought we had to be perfect. We had to do this, that, and the third, and then we realized, just do it. Like, if you look at content creators, people told us, like, we love hearing the evolution of you guys from talking over each other to now being more fluent in the way you guys are able to eye each other and say, all right, I know she's about to come in. So people enjoy the journey. If you're just perfect or you wait until you get perfect, you're probably never going to do it because you're going to always think that there's something else. You put it out there. You put it out there. Like I said, your target audience is your target audience. If they don't like you, that's fine. That's not the person that you're targeting. In realizing that when you start something, family and friends you think is going to be there to support you, but you'll be very surprised that they might, but you'll get people that you don't even know that will support you. Like, look at all the people that have gone viral and things like that online. It wasn't their family and friends. It was people that connected to their story. And that's where I go back into knowing what your passion is and knowing your story, because somebody's going to connect with that in some way. And then they're going to be the person that's going to support you. But don't wait to be perfect because you're never going to do it. Just get started. And then from there, you work your way up. That one person that doesn't like you or what you're doing, there's another 10 that will love it.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then I think, again, once you know why you're doing it, it doesn't matter if they like it or not, because at the end of the day, you're doing it because of this mission and this goal and that why. So it's just not their cup of tea, and that's okay. And people are always going to have something to say. I've learned that through my many years of life, period. So
Yeah, I think as long as you go home every night, you can look at yourself in the mirror and you know that you've done good today.
yeah, based on your values and the character that you have, being a person of integrity is huge. And if you can go to sleep at night saying, I did my best, I put my best foot forward in everything that I do, you'll be okay.
All right. Anyone else? I know you guys have to keep going.
Thank you guys so
We
much. If
thank
you have
you,
any
thank you.
questions, please let me know. I can share my email.
Okay.
We can connect.
We so
Thank you for
appreciate
having
you.
me.